Everybody talks about the moonwatch. Moonwatch, moonwatch, moonwatch. There's like 1,001 variations of it. There's even a day of the week dedicated to this thing. But there is a little known Omega chronograph that's living in its shadows. Living in the moon's shadows. They should call that an eclipse. Hey guys, I'm Max and welcome back to Hot Ones. This is Gasworks Park. This used to be a gasification plant at the turn of the century and was used to make something called city gas, which was used for lighting. However, with the advent of electricity, city gas became obsolete. And so in the 1960s, the city of Seattle repurposed this property and turned it into a park. Around the same time was when Omega introduced the first Omega Dynamic. Over the course of the decades, the Dynamic name has taken on 3 different forms in 3 very different watches. The first version of the Dynamic was introduced in the late 60s, and it featured a distinctive elliptical shape. It also came in many dial variations, embracing bold colors. Its claim to fame was that the case shape was supposedly designed based on a detailed study of the human wrist. The other quirky feature was a quick change system for the bands. And by the time it was discontinued in 1972, Omega would sell over 1 million examples. In 1984, Omega would reclaim the Dynamic name for a Speedmaster version, this time featuring a quartz movement and an awkward angled case, presumably to help the wearer see the watch without having to turn their wrist. This watch carried on the theme of quick change bands, which can be accomplished with a special tool that Omega provided. And today we're going to look at the 3rd generation Omega Dynamic from the 90s, a rare bird that, if you don't really care for the whole moon landing thing, can give the Speedmaster a run for its money. Speaking of repurposing something old for a new use, in 1997 Omega brought back the Dynamic name for a 3rd go at this watch. This time, the watch had no visible connections to the Dynamics of the past. The dial is reminiscent of pilot watches from World War II, and the case has a chunky, almost hockey puck shape. There is also no quick change strap here, just a president-style bracelet that is actually quite supple and comfortable on the wrist, featuring a stamped clasp. The Dynamic came in both the chronograph version, which we have today, as well as a 3-hander time and date only variant, bearing an uncanny resemblance to this RAF pilot's watch from the 50s. Let's take a look at the dimensions of the watch. It has that ideal diameter at 38mm and lug width of 20. It feels just slightly thick at 13mm on the wrist and has a compact lug-to-lug distance of 45. The case back has a nice engraved Omega logo, and cracking it open, we find a metal cover, which is used to shield the movement from magnetism, proving that this watch means business. Taking a look inside reveals the Omega Caliber 1138, which is an ETA-based movement that beats at 28,800 vibrations per minute. Behind that movement sits the Dubois-Dupraz chronograph module, as seen in the Speedmaster Reduced. The unabashedly stylistic dial really takes the cake. Bright yellow accents are contrasted with a matte black background and are found scattered in the small numerals, as well as prominently featured in the chronograph hand. Its arrow tip counterweight, as well as sword-style minute and hour hands, give the watch an aggressive persona. The Arabic numeral hour markers and railroad-like minute track throw formality out the window and hail from vintage pilot watches of the past. The Superluminova has a pleasant green glow and lights up like a torch after just a bit of sunlight exposure, really highlighting the Breguet-style font of the hour numerals. For under $2,000, the third generation Dynamic is a strong contender against the likes of the Speedmaster Reduced, and trades some of that speedy heritage for bold, colorful design and exclusivity, since it was only produced for a couple of years. I just want to take a pause here and thank my awesome subscribers. Thank you for joining me on my watch journey, and thank you for chiming in with your encouragements and insightful comments. And if you haven't subscribed already, I still love you, but I encourage you to scroll down and hit that red button. It'll really help the channel to continue to make quality watch videos. Okay, let's get back to the Omega Dynamic. Belying the watch's 38mm size are the exaggerated pump pushers, which extend the watch's presence laterally. A leather, rally, or NATO strap goes a long way into accentuating the watch's military roots. The modular movement design necessitates a thicker case, which would usually be a problem for a dressier chronograph, an issue the Omega Dynamic simply shrugs off with its rugged persona. Operating the chrono mechanism is a pleasure, as the tactile feel is positive and the hand sweep is ever so smooth. The case is entirely brushed and feels like it can take a beating. The crystal is made of scratch-resistant sapphire with anti-reflective coating. The bicompax dial design is anything but sparse, but Omega manages somehow to make it feel balanced and not at all busy. The high contrast of the yellow accents is well executed and pleasing to the eyes. Collectors should be aware that before its discontinuation in 1999, Omega made a limited edition Dynamic called the Targa Florio. This watch commemorated the legendary endurance car race held in Sicily. So that was the Omega Dynamic. 3 different watches spanning 6 decades. I, for one, really hope that Omega brings back the name for some future avant-garde creation. So let me know in the comments below if you would ever consider the Dynamic over the moonwatch. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. So thanks for watching, Hot Ones. Until next time, take care.